Canada is pushing for more economic benefits from a plan to buy U.S. F-35 warplanes. Industry Minister Melanie Joly tells Radio-Canada that the federal government is seeking some return from F-35 maker Lockheed Martin in exchange for going ahead with the full contract. It would be worth more than $27 billion.
But what if the smartest fighter jet isn't the most expensive one? What if real air power in the 2020s isn't about flexing a trillion-dollar supply chain, but about showing up anywhere fast with your own tools, your own data, and your own decisions? This is about security involving US F-35 on the one hand, and Sweden's Gripen E fighter jet.
Because the F-35 review is still underway, because we're going to take the time we need to get this right. And it is a very, very complicated issue for Canada.
National Defence is working hand in hand with industry to make sure we get good value for Canadians. Mr. Speaker, we are making the biggest investment in the Royal Canadian Air Force in over 30 years. This is about giving our aviators the tools they need to keep Canada safe.
With these, you know Canada stands at that crossroads. One path buys into an empire of logistics. The other chooses sovereignty, agility, and a philosophy built to survive chaos. That second path has a name: Gripen E. For years, replacing Canada's aging CF-18S looked like a closed book. The F-35 Lightning II, sleek, stealthy, and sold as the crown jewel of Allied air power, seemed inevitable. The United States doesn't just export airplanes, it exports an ecosystem: parts, software, maintenance, approvals. Along with capability comes a contract, power paired with dependence. But across the Atlantic, in a country with no global empire to lean on, Saab built something different. Not the biggest, not the flashiest, the smartest. Gripen E is less a platform than a survival doctrine welded into steel and software. Start with where Canada actually lives: vast Arctic distances, long coastlines, remote runways, brutal weather. Gripen E was born for exactly that. It can operate from a 500-meter stretch of road, turn around in roughly 10 minutes with a handful of technicians, refuel, rearm, and be gone before a satellite even blinks. It was designed to be maintained by small teams with laptops and toolkits, not battalions of contractors and bespoke hangars. Where the F-35 often needs the empire to travel with it, Gripen brings its own independence. Then there's cost. Real cost. The kind that decides how many jets actually fly today, tomorrow, and 5 years from now. We are talking about a life cycle of cost. Flight hour cost. Training cost, etc. The quiet math that determines whether you patrol once a day or 3 times, whether you surge in a crisis or sit and wait for parts. Gripen's economics don't just save money, they buy tempo. More sorties. More presence. More north covered by fewer people on shorter notice. That's not budgeteering. That's knowledge. That's innovation! It's intellectual property. It's strategy. And sovereignty. This is the pressure point almost nobody wants to talk about out loud. Who owns the jet after you buy it? Who controls the software keys, the mission data, the upgrades, and more? The F-35's logistics backbone, Odin, formerly Alice, means unprecedented insight and support, but it also means your fleet's beating heart pulses through another capital. Gripen offers a different bargain: open architecture, data in your hands, software you can alter, mission systems you can tailor, sovereign test ranges where you write your own playbook. It's interoperable with allies, yes, but not permission-based. Stealth versus deception is the next fork in the sky. The F-35's thesis is simple: don't be seen. Gripen E's counter-thesis is elegant: let them see the wrong thing. Its electronic warfare brain, Saab's cutting-edge suite often grouped under the Erexus family, turns the battle space into misdirection. Jam the radar. Bend the picture. Feed false tracks. Blind the seeker. In exercises and trials, pilots have described the effect as fighting a ghost. That's not about paint or angles. That's about outcomputing the threat at the speed of radio waves. Zoom out and you notice the pattern. Everything on Gripen E talks to everything else. Pilot sensors, data links, offboard nodes, UAVs, surface radars, stitched into a single adaptable picture. It's a digital brain built for the messy middle of real operations, not a pristine lab demo. And because the architecture is open, Canada can plug its own intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance stack straight in, without asking anyone's permission to innovate. Now let's be honest, the F-35 brings real advantages. Its stealth, sensor fusion, and the sheer scale of its user community offer undeniable punch. If your doctrine is kick down the door first, the F-35 is compelling. But Canada's day job isn't invasion. It's defense. Deterrence. It is Arctic patrols in conditions that punish complexity and reward resilience. In that world, the question isn't which airplane wins a PowerPoint duel, it's which fleet flies more, breaks less, learns faster, and answers to us. Gripen E is an answer to geography as much as geopolitics. It's the highway strip hidden in a snowdrift, the toolbox in the back of a fuel truck, the 10-minute turnarounds that turn a handful of airframes into an everywhere presence. It's sovereignty expressed as procedures. And that's why it makes some people uncomfortable, because sovereignty is louder than stealth when the power goes out. There's also the quiet diplomacy inside the offer: technology transfer, local assembly, Canadian jobs building Canadian capability, mission data and software Canada controls. That's not just a sales brochure line. That's nation building in aerospace clothing. It means the next time you want to tweak a threat library or spin up a new tactic, you don't file a ticket. You write code, you test, you fly. Critics say interoperability, good. Gripen speaks Link 16. It plugs into NATO command and control. It plays well with others. The difference is who holds the plug. Being interoperable is not the same as being dependent. Canada can be both allied and autonomous. In fact, in a world of contested logistics and brittle supply chains, allies need each other to be autonomous. So why call Gripen Canada's smart bet? Because it aligns ends, ways, and means. Ends: protect an enormous, harsh homeland with credible, constant presence. Ways: dispersed operations, rapid turnarounds, electronic deception, and sovereign data. Means: as a fighter you can fly often, fix quickly, fund sustainably, and modify locally. These project intelligence over inertia, adaptability over prestige, and freedom over friction. This isn't a fairy tale where the underdog humiliates the giant. It's a professional judgment about fit. The F-35 may win on paper in some categories and in procurement politics most days. But Canada doesn't live on paper. It lives on ice, forest, mountain, and ocean. Out there, the jet that flies today beats the jet that's perfect next quarter. The fleet you control beats the fleet you rent. Mind you, the Air Force that can lose a base and keep fighting beats the one that loses a server and has to wait. Maybe the boldest idea inside Gripen isn't a sensor or a weapon. It's trust. Trust that a small nation can design its own future and that partners can sell capability without strings. Sweden codified that trust into an airplane. Canada, if it chooses, can codify it into policy. And if you think this is just about jets, look again. It's about how smaller, smarter countries win the 21st century. Software you can change, logistics you can shrink, crews you can train quickly, tactics you can evolve without asking anyone's leave. That's the quiet revolution. Not the biggest, but the smartest. If this perspective helped you see the sky a little differently, tap subscribe, share it with a friend, and let me know what you'd choose for Canada's North stealth that hides, or deception that misleads. Either way, the conversation matters. Independence isn't something you buy, it's something you fly. This is Liberation Lens. Perspective matters.